Welcome everybody to the next episode of Rookhtown. In the last episode we built this wonderful factory island, so to say, where all the big factories are already located. And also, just to notice that again, I'm happy you guys were happy, to say happy again, with the fact that I reduced the speed of the time-lapse. So it's again, as last episode, reduced to only 4 times, which I hope will be better for you to follow. And yeah, in this episode we are going into a little bit of farm work, which is badly needed, since you know, for a town in this kind of century where we are aiming at, or in the time where we are aiming at, this basically was also still a very, very important thing, that they had a lot of farm fields, and there is not only high industry, somewhere the food has to come from, and this is also why I was focusing on that. But it still should get a little bit of first industry bits and pieces, and kind of make this still appeal like a bit more steampunky. And this is why I'm, as you can see, trying to work a little bit with some pipe works here and there, which is all a little bit of a blueprint for later stages of the development of the city. And your suggestions in the last episode were absolutely amazing, to make sure that we do have some worker areas as well, where kind of, you know, some factories in this time did build entire little towns where people can live, where their employees can live, because like a factory back then basically employed hundreds of people, and it's, you know, robotic wasn't a thing back then, so it was basically all done by hand, and you needed a lot of people even to make the big steam machines work. And yeah, this is one of the main reasons why there were always like these kind of worker towns, where every house kind of looked exactly the same as the other ones. But yeah, this will be for a later stage, because there is still a tiny bit of pre-recorded footage left for the next 2-ish episodes, which I can already spoil will be the preparation for a zoo. It is again a Rudi thing. I totally jumped into something I shouldn't have done that early on in the series, because it started off as a total mess. I was totally going way too crazy on this from the beginning, and I didn't really know exactly what I was doing. So yeah, it was a little bit too early, I guess, but in the end I managed to create a very nice zoo, I should say, which I'm pretty happy with in the end. I didn't expect it to work that well, but it turned out to be super awesome, and this is also why I decided to leave it in for this early stage. And afterwards we are going to connect this area over here, which is more like the farm field area, with the actual inner city area. So this is what we will do in the next couple of episodes. And yeah, as I said in the Planet Coaster videos, there will be something hidden in the next videos, which will be in the zoo videos, I can already tell you. And for the lucky one who is spotting it first, and I'm saying it because when you will hear it, you will know it. This is exactly what I wanted to let you know already. There will be a bit more of an explanation in the last episode, but if you listen carefully to my commentary, you will potentially hear something. And yeah, I will draw someone under all of those coming up with the right answer in the comments down below. I am giving away a game key to a not yet released game, which is still in beta, and you will be able to play the beta. I'm not talking, you know, I'm not saying which game it is. It is also a game which should fit to your likeliness in terms of management, building, whatever game. But I'm not going to tell you even more than this. But stay tuned. It will be in the next 2 videos, excluding this one. So including this one, next 3 videos. There will be a question, and you will be only able to answer this question if you've watched the entire video, this one and the last one, the last episode as well. It is a trial. I don't know if this will work. I don't know if you guys will be as engaged to do this. So I'm trying this and see how this turns out. But yeah, if you will be in the draw of it, I want to be in the raffle, make sure to listen to the commentary. You don't even need to watch. You can just, you know, keep it running and listen to what I'm talking about. And yeah, we're gonna see what this is going to be like. But yeah, in this episode, I already said we are mainly focusing on farm fields, and in the end of this episode we are going back into the main area, trying to lay a foundation for a bit of the inner city layout. So it's all still layouting the city in its general state before we go into some more detail work in the later stages of this series. But for the moment, I feel like this little by the way, this is all done by the automatic farm field roads, which is a super good mod I found on the workshop, and I saw that this is, oops, I just hit my microphone again, that this mod is also pretty high rated. So yeah, I can only recommend this mod as well. It automatically creates whether you want to have, you can decide whether you want to have some trees or not on the sidelines, and whether you want to have automated farm fields on the left and right hand side of the street. And then you can only draw this out, and it will automatically create some farm roads for you with some farm fields next to it. And you can see that this turns out to be working pretty nicely, and we will definitely fill this whole region with some more variants of farm fields. You can see I'm also trying a few of those in-game pieces because I felt like the corn looks kind of nice, and also these fields in general at least look decent. I wanted to have some more variations in. I was really astonished by how good these in-game assets do look, to be honest. They don't necessarily look that organic as it can be with the normal decals or like the farm fields from the workshop, but they still, I think they are still looking nice enough to be featured in this area. So I'm really trying here to bring in a little bit of this vibe of the 2030s. So if you look at pictures or at movies or at I don't know, footage in general from the 20s or 30s or 40s, whatever, and you see all these dusty towns in the background, you will always see a lot of farm fields in the foreground. And this is exactly what I wanted to create with this one over here as well. And obviously there's also a reason for positioning it here, because they also tend to be close to rivers, since the rivers provided the water, which is badly needed obviously to run all these farm fields and make them grow and make them have enough water. And I'm just happy that this all works together so well on this map, and there's still so much to come. And I really feel like the flow of City Skylines finally, which I'm super happy about. And you can see that I'm placing these pipes now really alongside the roads here to make sure that we have a good structured organization of you know, of water and kind of water supply and all this kind of stuff, which you will need for the fields to make it look a bit more industrial oriented already, rather than just being farm fields for the sake of being farm fields, which I feel like is a little bit unnecessary. And yeah, I wanted to create a steampunk-ish vibe, and steampunk, that's the word, Rudi, come on. Chill down, relax, and start thinking before you talk. Gosh, I won't ever learn that. However, you can see it's slowly turning out to look like something. I am fully aware of the fact that this is not finished, and this can already... It could look way better, but I still wanted to make sure that this at least is a first attempt on how it looks, and I definitely will finish this area off in the next couple of episodes, maybe even off screen. I have to look into it, how this exactly looks. I do also have some problems with this corn field, which is very close to the river over here. If you zoom in, it kind of looks decent, but it creates this kind of ugly pattern, since I needed to join them into each other to make sure that this looks kind of as, you know, filled and smooth enough. But I'm not a big fan of this asset, to be honest, since it creates that ugly pattern as soon as you zoom out a little bit. I don't know how much I can change this with the lot mod. I can increase the lots of this particular asset, so that by zooming out it still has this high density look to it. I feel like this really is what I need to do to make sure that this looks exactly how it should look also from the distance, but I'm not entirely sure if I will be able to do this. However, I wanted to go into a bit more of a beautification of the riverside, which we will do here. Unfortunately, in the end of this episode, you will see I have the game on pause, and as soon as I release the game to play mode again, the whole farm field will be drowned, because these big rocks over here create a weird barrier for the water flow, and then it creates flooding, and this is absolutely not what I'm looking for, and this is why I changed this off screen. So once we go back in a few episodes to finish off this farm area, you will see that this is already changed a bit, but only to the good. However, we are now back into our main station area, and I wanted to again create a foundation for our more dense living area, and this is why I put down various houses. And don't be confused, I'm also putting down a lot of houses that don't really fit the theme. I was just testing which kind of assets I can use around here, and some of them are awesome. As you can see, these two over here are pretty much brilliant. Some others are not, and since I find these preview images somewhat confusing sometimes, this is why I'm putting them all down before I'm going to use them actually, so I can really see which ones I want to use and which ones I don't want to use, and also making sure that I divide the right ones to for commercial and the other ones which are residentials, and some of them basically look the same. This is why I need to locate them differently so that I know which building is for what. Otherwise our city will have a pretty bad flow in the end. But yeah, this is very straightforward, and what I'm doing right now, I'm just putting down a lot of buildings to make sure that they somewhat look like something that could be installed in a steampunk-ish 90s, 20s, 30s, 40s inspired town. So again, I think I have to talk about that again, because it wasn't too obvious for most of you in the last couple of episodes, which is, for once, the setting of this city initially was set by me to like the beginning of the 20th century, ending of 19th century, which is simply not doable in City Skylines, simply because there are not enough assets in terms of you know, vehicles that would be used back then. It's all way too modern, so I have to find like a compromise. I think most of it will be inspired by 20s and 30s, but in terms of vehicles and cars and stuff like that, we have to deal with at least like 40s, 50s styled vehicles. Otherwise this is simply not doable. And this is also why some streets, not all of them, but some streets already use asphalt rather than bricks or stone pavement or whatever, which yeah, I think is still okay. It's not exactly what I wanted at the beginning, but at some point you just realize that there is a certain restriction that is given by the game, and you have to follow this restriction, which is totally okay. There's like, this is how progress is made. You always have to look into it and adjust to the circumstances around you, and I pretty much believe that we did adjust as best as possible. And I'm just very optimistic for the future that will look good. As you can see, I'm using some different street elements over here to make sure that this neighborhood looks good enough and looks a little bit more dense. And yeah, as I said, this is not exactly 20s. This is already being a little bit more 30s, 40s maybe oriented. So yeah, I believe this is something I really need to look into. But again, I wanted to maintain some of the factories within the city. So what happens what happened in the 40s and 50s, and especially even later after the Second World War, is that most factories that have been located inner cities were relocated outside of the cities. So mainly to make more space for residentials within the cities, but also to make sure that the pollution and stuff of the air in cities kind of is stopped by moving them outwards. Many of the companies were destroyed by that decision, and new big giant players kind of raise from these circumstances. So yeah, it's really an interesting topic to talk about, because it changed the entire looks of cities. Like back then, really cities were featuring a lot of industry very close to the city center, and then by time they started to move them outwards. So this is also why you can see still today having these, they're pretty much always very expensive and very exclusive kind of loft residential areas where they use old factories as very modern kind of retro looking living spaces, which is like for hipster people in terms of interior design. So these old factories basically have always been reused for residential, but also for like showrooms and party locations, stuff like that. So which I find is really cool to really see where they're coming from, that they have actually been rusty, steam producing, ugly environmental polluting factories. But yeah. So yeah, but we are now about to end this episode, because I'm now going into what will be the zoo area in the next couple of episodes. I have to say I had some struggle to find exactly the way how I make the zoos work and stuff. I forgot about the fact that I needed to paint a zoo area before I can start, so this is what is happening here. But you will see in the next episode how the zoo is going to turn out. Until then, I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I hope to see you in the next one. Until then, have a good time and see you. Bye bye, guys.